it's all very well talking about these mistakes, but how should one live our life given we make mistakes? Finding mistakes. We must be actively looking for mistakes. If we never notice them, we are doomed to repeat them. This is kind of obvious. But how do we look for mistakes? Is the non-obvious question. One fantastic thing about Mars that you may be hard-pressed to find in other social circles is we criticize each other openly. We also see criticism from others. We know that through criticism can come improvement, and we are not scared. Or if we are, we know that the fear is irrational and we overcome it, or push through it, or whatever. Mars's attitude towards criticism is rare and violates social convention by doing this. Most people hide from criticism. Most people feel bad about criticism or feel bad about mistakes. But finding mistakes is glorious! Karl Popper once said, "I think that there is only one way to science, or to philosophy for that matter, to meet a problem, to see its beauty and fall in love with it, to get married to it and to live happily with it, till death do ye part, unless..."
That's romance.
So he's just equated a wife with a problem.
Well, this is going on the cultural assumption that this stuff is good, but we can replace that with something good. Unless you should meet another and more fascinating problem, or by the way, that's not very nice. Or indeed, unless should you obtain a solution.
In which case you kill your wife.
or don't do romance. But anyway, even if you do obtain a solution, then you may discover to your delight the existence of a whole family of enchanting, though perhaps difficult, problem children, for whose welfare you may work with a purpose to the end of your days. If we live our life as if we're not making any mistakes, and don't look out for them, we may be hurt by them. But more importantly, if we don't look out for mistakes, we're missing an opportunity to make our lives better. So this is a difference between the way Mars behaves compared with other people. So this is applied philosophy. This is critical rationalism isn't just a theory that we talk about, it's something that we do. Another way of looking out for mistakes is to ask why. I used to be notorious for this. It violates social convention. People thought it was a bit weird sometimes. I will frequently ask why about stuff that I already have a guess of, or stuff where I think I know the real answer, but I don't know what the other person will say about it. Doing this means that I can learn more about it. Maybe I'm making a mistake I didn't know of. If I ask why to myself and can't come up with a good answer, that suggests that my knowledge is lacking. I could ask the person just what their opinions are, but unless I probe deeper with questions like why, all I've got is what he thinks his ideas are. But people are frequently wrong about their own beliefs. To get an objective assessment of people, you have to ask deeper questions. And so I probe. And sometimes it looks weird, but I learn. Applying the critical attitude even affects the way I watch TV. When watching with someone, I will frequently pause and comment on mistakes, be it philosophy, relationship theory, factual errors, whatever. Sometimes it will turn into a conversation, and sometimes I will spend more time on the conversation than actually watching TV. It's important to note that this too violates social norms. People just want to just watch TV or just enjoy it, or don't want to ruin the atmosphere, and so on. But it's so much better to do it this way. It's a more engaged way of watching TV. It turns something that bad people think is bad and good people think is okay into something really good. The reason I sometimes spend more time discussing TV than actually watching it is partly because it's fun. Trying to understand the world and uncover mistakes and solve problems is a delightfully enjoyable process. To quote Popper again, all of life is problem solving. Which brings me to loving mistakes. Making mistakes is something that we all do. Finding mistakes seems pretty straightforwardly followed from good sense. But what about loving mistakes? This is still counterintuitive to reasonable people, I think, because on the face of it, mistakes are bad. It would be better not to make those mistakes. However, if you never make any mistakes, it would be impossible to make progress. Fortunately, this type of utopia a boring static utopia where nothing ever changes is impossible. Problems are inevitable. Problems are where the fun is. Whatever you're doing, if it's really fun, that's because you are, consciously or subconsciously, working on a problem. Just as we should not fear problems, we should also take delight in finding them. As I mentioned, most people are scared of mistakes, or mistakes make them sad or whatever. They panic when they find a mistake. There is a difference between a mistake that causes coercion and a mistake that doesn't. Mistakes that cause coercion are when two ideas are active in your mind and that they conflict. Until you resolve the conflict somehow, you don't know what to do, and that hurts. One way to not be coerced by mistakes is to quickly take a third position. Take the position, one or both of these ideas is wrong. I don't know which yet, but by problem solving I can find out. When one comes across a problem or a contradiction, one's default stance should be something like this. This applies even when things go horribly wrong, or if you're in a stressful situation or something sets you back. There is no reason to let problems hurt you. You can make your situation better. You can solve problems, or you can make progress on them. The more you do that, the more you can turn your attention to even better problems. So, when I was in Canada, I made a bit of a mistake with my iPhone. The Velcro fastening on my pocket wasn't strong enough to keep my iPhone restrained from meeting its destiny, the concrete floor. When I picked it up to inspect the damage, I saw the spiderweb crack. I didn't know whether the screen was broken, whether my files were safe, or whether it would ever turn on again. Most people would have panicked if this happened to them. If I hadn't been in a critical, problem-solving, mistake-loving mindset, I might have panicked too. But I didn't panic. My first thoughts were, okay, the iPhone fell. Why? Well, the mistake was in thinking that my pocket was safe. What now? I don't need it right now, so I can continue the activity that I was doing before it fell. What in future? Well, I may have to get a new iPhone. That's not so bad. Losing my files is kind of lame, but on the bright side, I get a new iPhone. I'll think about this more later at a more convenient time. To break it down, I didn't react straight away. I acknowledged what had happened, but I didn't have an emotional, unthought-out reaction. I was calm. I knew it was just a problem, like any other, and that it can be solved. It doesn't have to be a disaster. If necessary or convenient, it's fine to delay solving it. I actually avoid trying to turn it on to check whether it was alive at first, because although I felt fine at the time, albeit surprised, I didn't know whether it would hit me emotionally, so to speak. I was in the middle of a good discussion with a friend when it happened, so I thought that it was a good idea to delay dealing with it. I considered the idea that I should be panicking, and promptly discarded the idea. Not only is it not necessary, but it's harder to do problem solving when you're panicking. There is a word in Swedish, hoppsan, and that means something like, oh, look at that. It's a sort of surprised expression at something bad, like a mildly surprised expression at something going wrong, usually. Kind of like oopsie or something like that, yeah. And so this was actually my gut reaction to dropping the iPhone. Reacting to a problem with is a mistake. Problems aren't they're hoppsan. So we've made, identified, and appreciated mistakes. Now it's time to explore how to correct them so that we may work on even better mistakes. In other words, problem solving. Sometimes problems are hard. It takes a lot of thinking to solve them. Specifically, we brainstorm. We come up with a bunch of ideas, most of which are unsatisfactory, but which may lead to a good idea. For example, there is this story about the Korean War. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there was this ship that was trying to get like past this thing where enemies were, and there were mines, and they couldn't go in the daytime because then the enemies would see them. And then they couldn't go at nighttime because there were mines there, and they couldn't make a sound because they couldn't shoot at the mines and just explode them because then that would alert the enemies. And so the captain ordered everyone on the crew or whatever to come up with some an idea, no matter how out there it is and no matter how impossible it is, just try and think of something. So they said stuff like, oh yeah, we can fly over it, or oh yeah, we can just turn into a submarine and go underneath, or that sort of thing. And then one person said, well, we could piss on the mines. And now this idea was actually, a variant of this idea was used. What they did was they had this hose and they shot the mine, so it was quite quiet, and so they shot the mines and moved them away, and they could go. So this is an example of brainstorming, of even if ideas sound absurd, they could be altered to solve a problem. After brainstorming, we criticize our ideas. We try to find what problems our potential solutions have. Problems are everywhere, even in solutions. We weed out the bad ones, and if we have none left, we brainstorm again, or try to edit some of our brainstorm ideas so they work.